Good morning, everybody. For those of you who are in the West Coast, good afternoon for the East Coast and European members. And if you're joining us from Australia or New Zealand, a very, very good morning. We have a great webinar today. It will be presented by Anne Bachrach. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right, Anne?
Close enough, Ryan.
Okay. And she's going to talk to us about being focused and staying on track in order to achieve our goals. I know I have a problem with that because I seem to get distracted quite easily. I have a shiny object syndrome. So without any further delay, let me turn this over to Anne. Anne, it's all yours.
Well, thanks, Rayhan, and really thank you to everybody at the Small Business Center. I'm certainly glad to be with you today to share some information that can help accelerate the achievement of your goals so you can ultimately enjoy the kind of business and life that you want, and I actually believe you deserve. When you apply these 11 tips that we're going to talk about today, I think that they will help you be in a higher probability position to get more clients, increase your income, get more done in less time, in other words, be more productive, achieve more of your goals, be even more focused on the activities that produce results, organize your time and your life, eliminate the feeling of being overwhelmed. Now, Rayhan has the ability for him to see questions as you have them. And so feel free to type in your questions into the question box, and he will let me know when there is a question that I need to answer, whether it be on this topic or at the end of the webinar. So he's in charge of handling those great questions that will be coming in today.
Absolutely.
All right. So basically, just to give you a quick synopsis of who I am, I've written a book called Excuses Don't Count, Results Rule. I'm a co-author with Stephen Covey and Ken Blanchard on the Roadmap to Success book that we put together. I've also got a book out, one of my newer books, actually two of my newer books are in front of you, Live Life with No Regrets, How the Choices We Make Impact Our Lives, and a 230-page Work-Life Balance Emergency Kit. Just to give you a bit of information about me so you understand why I'm qualified to talk on the topic that we're going to be talking about today and why I think Rayhan invited me. It's basically during my successful IBM career, I created training materials, delivered many training programs to IBM clients. I also conducted many executive briefing sessions with top executives. And I really discovered ultimately the benefit of personal accountability while I was helping my husband, at the time he wasn't my husband, but while I was helping him build his speaking and training business. So I was basically the revenue generator, marketing person, legal department, and part-time coach. And I found that I really needed to be super efficient with my time and keep up with, obviously, my heavy workload. So I created some simple tracking spreadsheets and goals sheets to really help me stay focused and accomplish all the daily tasks that I needed to get done in order to achieve my goals and ultimately, obviously, help him achieve his. So ultimately, I ended up helping him increase his business from about $150,000, $200,000 or so to about $1.5 million in a very short period of time by using a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. Enough about me. Okay, as a business owner, there are things that you must do in order to accomplish your goals so you can have the kind of business and life that you've probably always dreamed about having. So you've got to deal with managing a team of clients and everything in between, and it can be easy to lose complete control of your day, as I'm sure we've all experienced at some time or another. So we all have the same 24 hours available in the day or 168 hours in our week. So it's really how we choose to use that amount of time that really makes a difference and has an impact on us achieving our goals. So you've got meetings, client service types of things you have to do, and a to-do list a mile long. along with all the daily tasks of running your business. So the key is to find an effective way to really handle our daily routine, to stay focused and on track, to achieve our goals in the shortest amount of time and with the least amount of effort. Now that makes sense, obviously, and that sounds really good. So how do we do that? So let's talk about tip number 1, where we're going to basically break down goals into daily actionable items, and then we're going to track them. So what you see in front of you is just a sample goals document of basically my long-range personal and business goals at the top, going down to what are my yearly goals. So you break it down again, then you break it down into quarterly goals, and then you break that down into weekly or biweekly goals and projects. So either every week or every other week. So when you're basically doing the things that are on your weekly or biweekly list, you know it has an impact on your quarterly, your yearly, and ultimately your long-range goals. Now what happens here is that you've got, in color you see 4 kind of titles or categories in color. So what I always have my clients do initially is use the Wheel of Life, and it has 8 areas. And on that Wheel of Life, we have them say, okay, if my life were a perfect 10, what would that look like in the money category, in the career category, in family and friends, health and fitness, fun and recreation, growth, spiritual growth, personal development, physical environment or home, and romance and significant other. So if my life was a perfect 10, what would that look like? So that gives us a vision of our future, what we'd ideally like our lives to be like. Then we break that down again into yearly goals. So that really helps us really formulate the weekly, our goals that we're tracking. So the Wheel of Life, I have in particular 8 areas on mine that I use, but a lot of other Wheel of Life, if you just Google it, you'll find that some have 11 or 12 or 13 or 9 different categories or areas, some of which obviously overlap a little bit. So you can have fun and recreation that relates to family and friends or health and fitness, those types of things. So you'll see a little bit of overlap when you think about how this works. Then what we do is we say, okay, what are my weekly and biweekly goals and projects that I've chunked everything down to, and then we put that information on our calendar. So we're going to talk about calendaring obviously later, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how you initially lay this out. Super simple, very simple, just goals document to help you get started. So here's an example.
And just a quick question. So is this something that we should build ourselves, or is there a pre-done template that's available from somewhere?
Basically, the Wheel of Life is just, you can get it, download that and actually do that exercise on my website for free. It's under the Silver membership.
Awesome.
So, yeah, the Wheel of Life, they can just go there and actually do their Wheel of Life, and it will graphically display it for them. And it's just a subjective, where am I at right now? Where am I at today?
Okay.
And then this template that I created, you can't really download this, but you can certainly take it from these PowerPoint presentation. I don't know, Rehan, if you want to include the PowerPoint with the recording on your website, but that's certainly fine to be able to do that. But this is just the way I created it. So all you really need is the long-range personal and business goals at the top, annual goals, quarterly goals, and biweekly or weekly, however you want to set that up. But this is just an example of somebody, I just basically typed this up just as an example of what you're looking for. So again, long range or anything next year and beyond. So because this year is our annual goal, so this is 2013. So long range personal and business is anything between next year and beyond. And it can be on to 50 years from now. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever it is for you for the goals that you have. Okay? Does that answer that question, Rehan?
It does, yes, absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, super. So, it's really somewhere between running a business and trying to have a personal life. It's not uncommon for our goals to tend to fall by the wayside at times. So sure, we write out a goals list. But it typically ends up at the bottom of a large stack of papers on our desk or filed away in a drawer or some electronic file on our computer that we never can find again and never seem to open. So if you're not pay attention to your goals on a daily basis, you're probably taking the long way around to actually getting to achieving your goals. So breaking your goals down into daily action steps and putting them onto your calendar, those action steps should be labeled high priority and handled as early as possible, or at least at the best time that gives you the best result. No excuses. Now, you know, there was a study that was done that basically talked about, I think it was Mark McCormick said, you know, what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. It basically says that Harvard MBA grads, 3% of the graduates they interviewed or talked to had written goals and plans. 13% of these Harvard MBA grads had goals but not anywhere written down. 84% had no specific goals at all. I mean, that blows my mind just in itself. 10 years later, those with written goals really demonstrated astonishing results. 13% of those people who had goals were earning on average twice as much as the 84% who had no goals. Remember, they had no specific goals. Now, 3% of those who had clear written goals were earning on average 10 times as much as the other 97% put together. So in spite of such successes, most people really don't have clear, measurable, time-bounded written goals that they actually work towards. Yogi Berra has a saying. He says, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. Which is so true. Getting those shiny objects, right, Rayhan?
Yep, that's my problem.
It is for a lot of people. Now here's just another sample of what your goals document could look like. This particular example just shows that it's a little bit into columns, and this person did a little bit more color. So the goal is on the left. Any additional information that they wanted to say about that particular goal was in the middle, and then, of course, when they wanted to achieve it by on the right-hand side. So they still would have long range at the top, like you're seeing. Then they'd have yearly, break it down into quarterly, and then weekly and biweekly the same way, just kind of laid out a bit differently, just to give you a different way to look at things. That's always useful to me anyway. Okay, so I guess tip number one is really maybe going to be 2 or 3 part number tip. Anyway, so basically from your goals document then, you're going to create what I call the monthly tracking spreadsheet. So you review basically your 8 areas from the goals document, and you ask yourself, what are all the activities that I have to do, I need to do, in order to be on the path to achieving the goals that I've set? So here's where you put all of those goals. So if I say, for example, I want to make $500,000 this year. Well, that's great. What are all the things I have to do that? Do I have to make phone calls to potential clients? Do I have to ask for referrals from existing clients? Do I have to go out and just do networking functions to meet different people who could potentially be clients? What are all the activities I have to do? Do I have to be on LinkedIn? Do I have to be on Facebook? Do I have to be tweeting? What are all the activities that I really need to do to really be able to achieve that financial number? So just one goal could have 8 or 10 activities that you have to do to actually achieve that one particular goal. Make sense?
It does make sense. Looking at the spreadsheet, though, once you have all the goals in here, would it look a bit too overwhelming?
It can. So typically, though, these are the activities that you have to do. So in order to achieve your goal of whatever your, let's say I use the example of revenue. In this example, the annual goal says 750,000. So what are all the things that I actually have to do in order to do that? And if the interesting thing to me, Rayhan, is every successful business person that I've ever met tracks numbers. They track something.
Yes.
And they know what they're going to track. In the morning when they get up, they know what they're going to be tracking. They know how many phone calls they have to make. They know how many people they have to see. They know, they're driven by, okay, these are the activities I know I have to do that are going to put me on the path to achieving my goals. So you have to track them someplace.
Absolutely.
The nice thing to me about this particular spreadsheet, I'm going to talk about, we're going to chunk this down even further, though, into a weekly spreadsheet. But basically, this tells you a story. This tells you quickly if I'm on track or if I'm off track, so you can course correct more quickly than how many times have you gotten halfway through the year and said to yourself, oh my gosh, I'm already halfway through the year and no way am I even on track to achieving this goal. Or I'm in the fourth quarter and I realize I'm not even close, remotely close to achieving my goals. It's too hard to get back on track. When you track your numbers this way, it really tells you what you've actually done to get the, or not done, to get the results you've gotten or not gotten. So it allows you to ask questions. It allows you to course correct. It tells you so much just by tracking just simple numbers. Now, in my case, I believe in having a balanced life. So I believe in tracking personal and business goals. So you'll see at the bottom of this particular example, it's got somebody who's tracking body fat, dinner with friends, number of visits with grandchildren, what my weight is, how many times I played golf, massages, yoga, running time, etc. You can create actually two separate ones, one for business, one for personal. Some people have done that. So they don't get too overwhelmed with, the business and the personal all being on one. It really doesn't matter, but the reality is you want to also track some personal time as well. One of my first clients many, many, many years ago said to me, Ann, he said, my wife loves you. And I said, well, Don, that's great, but your wife doesn't know me. And she's never met me, never talked to me, never, done anything with me. And he said, no, but because my life is so much better, I'm spending more time with her, with our grandkids, our quality of life is better, I'm not working as much. She loves what, the life that we have now more than, it was just working all the time. So I believe you do have to have some kind of work-life balance. You do have to have a life, or what are we living for? It's not all about work.
Absolutely.
Does that help answer that a little bit?
Yes.
Now, some people call this their business metrics. Some people will call it a dashboard. Some people will call it just a tracking spreadsheet. I don't really care what you call it. But the reality is that all successful people track numbers. They track their activity against their goal. So you need to have something that you work on that you're tracking. Now,
Quick question from Jack. He's asking, shouldn't the tracking grid be prioritized and also subdivided by activities?
It can be, and that's a great question. So it can be prioritized. The whole point of this is that you want to make sure that the things that you have on here, and I'm going to break it down into weekly, Jack, but then time gets allocated on the calendar. So we're going to talk about that. It's kind of, we're going through this a little step by step. But having it in a priority order is great. What a lot of people do also is have it in category. So like you saw on the original goals document, the colored items that said money, career, family, friends, fun, they break it down into sections like that and then prioritize it that way or not. But it really depends on you. Everybody's a little bit different. But I always love prioritizing. I think that's always the best way to go because the thing on the bottom of the list should always be the least important thing. So if something has to get moved to the next day, delegated or dropped or delayed, I believe it should be the thing at the bottom. So great question. Now, we want to break this down further. Wow, we're still on tip number 1, everybody. We're going to break this down even further into weekly. So basically, we take our monthly, because there are things on the monthly that we don't track weekly. So for example, most people don't track revenue coming in on a weekly basis. They only track it at the end of the month. They say, okay, what's the revenue I collected for the month, and they put it in there. Some people, on a personal note, may want to get a massage once a month, so they wouldn't put it on a weekly tracking spreadsheet. So there's certain things. I even had a lady once who wanted to donate blood twice a year. That was really important to her. So obviously that's not on a weekly tracking spreadsheet. So you basically want to keep breaking things down into more bite-sized pieces because they make it more manageable and easy to deal with. So we actually have a higher probability to do them. So again, here's a sample of what a weekly activity that's filled out could potentially look like. And then once you get done with the end of the week, you filter that into your monthly report. So you just take the week ending numbers, or your assistant would take the week ending numbers and move it up to the monthly. So those are recorded there. So then at the end of the month, you can look and say, am I on track? Am I off track? What do I need to adjust? Because nothing is set in concrete. Everything is changeable. So perhaps the next month, your weekly goal becomes very different. Your weekly goals might change based on your available time and based on what you've done the previous week. Now that being said, there's some things that can't be changed. So let's say that you have a goal of working out 5 days a week, even if it's only 20 minutes or 30 minutes, doesn't matter. If you only do it 2 days a week, you can't get more days next week. So that's just not possible. Now you could increase the time that you did to average it out. So if you said, well, I only wanted to work out 30 minutes, you could increase your workouts to an hour if you could do that. But the reality is you just kind of adjust things as you go based on what your annual goal is and what you've accomplished or not accomplished. So when you get closer to the middle of the year and you realize you're so far behind a goal, you obviously have to make some hard choices. You have to probably change your goal or you really do something dramatically different to be able to be on the path to achieving the goal. Now, one of the things that I have, and this kind of gets back to your question, I don't know if it was your question, Rayhan, or somebody else asked it, but one of the things on this weekly spreadsheet, again, you might say, this looks a bit overwhelming. So you might say, one of the things I tell my clients to do is pick 2 or 3 things on this weekly activity tracking spreadsheet that are the most important things that you must do no matter what. So it would be typically those things that would have potentially what I call the ripple effect. So if I did this one thing, it could potentially have an effect on 2 or 3 other things getting done. Right. So for example, it could be number of times that I ask for referrals. So asking for referrals obviously adds more people to your pool or your prospect list, which means you have more people to call or contact, which has more chance of getting to be clients. So that could be an example. So I typically tell them to highlight 2 or 3 things on this list that no matter what, they're going to achieve those things. Now, it doesn't mean that the other things aren't important and they still shouldn't do them. It just means that these 3 things are the most important and they have to achieve those no matter what. Now, here's another example just to give you what that might look like. So this particular person highlighted 4 things on his tracking spreadsheet. And then what he does at the end of the week is he takes a look and says, okay, did I hit my goal for each line item? Did I come close to the goal? So if he came close, he scored that as yellow. If he didn't even remotely come close or do it, it scored it as red. And if he achieved it or exceeded it, it scored green. And so he could visually quickly see at the end of the week really where he was off track and where he needed to really pay more attention going into the next week. Again, these tools are super simple. Don't take a lot of time once you've got them set up. They're really super easy to work with, and it really does help you stay focused and on track. Make sense, Rayhan?
It does, and I think that's a key point that you just mentioned. Essentially, what you're doing is you're developing a business plan on an Excel spreadsheet.
Yep.
And there's a lot of heavy lifting up front, and I think that's where many people fall off the wagon, if I can use the term, is not setting it up properly to begin with because it's taking too much time, and maybe it's too much thinking is required as to what they want to achieve and how they're going to achieve it. But that's essentially your business plan, and if you don't do that, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's a good way to point this out, is it really your goals document, and these spreadsheets are your business plan. These tell you what you need to do in order to achieve your goals in a nutshell. And initially, they do take a bit of time just to go through the thought process, but once you do them, it's just so super simple. It is so easy. But obviously, I do believe you have to have a little accountability along the way, or it's too easy to fall off track. So I always recommend you find accountability buddies or partners or things like that. And people can get some ideas from my website. Also, there's free, some free information about how to find like a couple other people and how to set up an agenda and how to work with that. But I think we can all use a little accountability to help us stick to the game plan.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whew, that was whole tip number 1. Okay. Tip number 2. Basically, we're talking about removing distractions and interruptions from your life. So wasting time, obviously, on low priority tasks is one of the most common sources of interrupting your success. So it could be useless emails, texting, social media, surfing the internet, personal phone calls, chit-chatting are all wastes of time for many of us. They suck the time, as it goes by. You go, oh my gosh, I've spent 30 minutes doing this. So in my opinion, work hours should be reserved for work. Distractions need to be a thing of the past and not the present if you want to achieve your goals within the time frame that you've set. So close your email, shut the internet down, turn off the ringer on your phone, and get those distractions out of your way. Remove paperwork that you're not currently working on from your site. Create a system that works for you and then stick to it. Consistent, which I love the word consistent, execution of new habits that put you in the highest probability position to make better progress on your goals so you can really create that business and life that you really want is key. So do what you need to do to stop reading and paying attention to things that really aren't moving you forward. Too much of our time is spent on, looking at, reading, talking to, reviewing things that really aren't moving us forward. So what are your highest payoff activities? And then pay attention to doing those activities and, subsidizing those with things that help move you forward, learning things that will help you do your high payoff activities better, get the results you want to get better and faster. Tip number 3.
Can I just say really quickly about the tip number 2 thing?
Sure.
For those of us who do kind of work online, so for example, we have a group on LinkedIn, so I have to manage it quite frequently. And of course, when you're on LinkedIn or take it Facebook or Twitter, and if that's your business thing, when you go in there for business purposes, you may get distracted because there are other non-essential, non-urgent, non-business messages in there. And I think you need some sort of a self-control as to not get engaged in those things and stick to the business aspect of it.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And self-control with those shiny objects can be difficult, but you basically give yourself an allotment of time.
Yes.
And say, okay, I'm going to go in and execute X during X amount of time. It's an allotment of time. Mm-hmm. And so you can't afford to be distracted by the other things that are superfluous, at least at the time. You can go back to them in what I call maybe non-productive, non-high payoff time, to do those things. But I totally agree with that.
Thanks.
Okay, tip number 3, be aware of sabotaging habits. No one is ever completely free of self-sabotaging habits, which is why it's important to be aware of your tendencies, which you just talked about actually, Rehan. When you're aware of your sabotaging habits, you can easily spot them, and it helps you to stop them from distracting you from your success. So whether you create procrastination, overwhelm, emotional crisis of some sort, physical exhaustion, relationship drama, or a host of other common habits, you're creating self-sabotage. So achieving your goals becomes a lot easier when you can spot troublesome habits and consciously and quickly get yourself back on track. Now, so many of us procrastinate on what we know we need to do in order to achieve our goals. So in most instances, our anxiety causes us to procrastinate with a task we perceive as either difficult or perhaps impossible, when it really is much easier in reality. So we make this whole perceived notion that, oh, this is going to be too difficult or it's just impossible. So the problem comes in when you repeatedly procrastinate, allowing some non-real anxiety to build until it's much bigger than the actual task itself. So the root of our procrastination and lollygagging comes down to exaggerated anxiety that we allow to really spin out of control. And to make matters worse, our anxiety is based on our perception of an outcome that hasn't even happened yet, and I don't even think in most cases it's even real. So you say, well, a lot of us do procrastinate on a variety of things for a variety of reasons. So how do you stop procrastinating? Well, my best solution for that is just do it. Do what you know you need to do in order to achieve your goals. So suck it up, put your big girl pants on, your big boy pants on, and just do it. Now, procrastination can be a whole, couple-hour session. So I have a whole session under my free webinars on my website. You can download some free webinars from there, and one of them is on procrastination, and there's many more that you can take. It's just complimentary, no problem. Tip number 4, get really clear on the why or the reason. So when you get really clear on the why you're working on a particular task, you can intellectually grasp whether you really need to be doing it at all or actually having someone else do it for you. So try this exercise. Ask yourself, why am I doing whatever the task is? If your answer isn't good enough, it's not a real good why, it's not a real good reason, you know that you probably shouldn't be spending your valuable time on it. And your time is valuable. You should all be thinking of your time as gold or platinum, some really valuable entity, because it is. You cannot invest your time and get it back like you can money. So it's super, super valuable, and you need to really believe that it is and choose to use your time wisely. You want to really focus your attention on your highest payoff activities that put you in the highest probability position to achieve your goals. So the emotional payoff should pull you, like a magnet would pull you, to doing all that you need to do in order to achieve your goals. So what is the reason why you do what you do every day, even when you may not feel like it? What is your emotional payoff? What is your financial payoff? So always kind of be thinking, is this really important? Why am I doing this? If not, move on.
Is this where your priorities are going to come from as well, is by asking that why question and why something is important?
It can, absolutely. It can help you definitely identify your highest payoff activities and put those at the top of your list, because you know the emotional and financial payoff is going to be greater.
Okay.
Absolutely. Tip number 5, chunk-like activities together. So prep time and a pre-task setup can eat up huge amounts of time. So chunk-like activities together. Basically, if you, and I learned this a long, long time ago, I found that basically I was changing hats all the time. So if I had to make a certain type of phone call, then I had to make a different type of phone call right after that, then perhaps a different type of phone call, or I had to read a certain email, and it was totally different than the next email. I mean, it was just, I was doing so many different things. I had to change my hat every different time I was doing something. So I found that when I did like activities or similar activities together, it was more time efficient. So I started chunking my time together, that I said, okay, I'm going to make these types of prospecting calls, for example, or these types of JV types of calls together, or these types of client service calls together, or whatever it might be. So I put those all together. So I was using basically the same type of script, and I didn't have to constantly change my thinking. So I found that to be really, really much more time efficient than doing one thing, then doing something different, then doing something different, then doing something different. So it really helps you to be more time efficient when you can chunk things together at one time. Okay. This is I found this interesting. Michael Hyatt is a writer and a speaker and a very successful business person, and he basically shared his ideal model work week with people who came to his website. So I thought I'd just show this to you. I thought it was interesting how he just put it out there. He said, yeah, I have an ideal model work week that I follow, and this is what it looks like. So it's kind of making almost a commitment in public of what he's actually doing. Now, obviously, I don't agree with checking email first thing in the morning. And we can talk about that a bit later because I think it gets us off track too easily. But obviously it works for him, and he has 2 time frames when he does check email only. You'll see that on here, 2 different times in his day, at the very beginning and at the very end of the day. And then he has all these other things, excuse me, in between.
I like that he put a nap in there.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. It's interesting. My mother has been a super successful business person in her career. She has those power naps that people call power naps, where she can just take a nap for 15 minutes and boom, she's rejuvenated and ready to go. I need a nap that's like an hour or 2, so I can't really put nap on my schedule during the day. So that wouldn't work for me, but it does for some people, and I think that's really great that it does for those people. Again, everybody's different, and that's what, you know, is so interesting about all we do. So all my clients have an ideal model work week of how they want things to be in an ideal world. So you want to create, you know, blocks of time where you want to be able to get things done. Now, in particular, the most important thing, your highest payoff things, are probably revenue generation or client acquisition, whatever you want to call it. So you want to make sure that the first thing that you, and foremost thing that you would put on your calendar is the revenue generation or client acquisition time. Now, you know, Brian Tracy always talks about eat that frog. So doing the things that you don't like maybe, you know, right away in the morning that really are the highest payoff are important to do. And I totally agree with that, because you do get onto email or sucked into the internet, and, you know, in half an hour, 2 hours goes by, and your whole schedule for the whole day is messed up. So the 2 most important things, or the 1 most important thing to put on there really is your revenue generation, client acquisition types of time. And then I always believe in putting the time on to check emails as well, to try to stick to that. And it depends on your business, what you're responsible for, how you'd have categories of time. So you can have different categories. So think about what you do, for example, and how you categorize your work, and then time block that based on what your goals are to achieve that time frame that you need to. So you want to basically leverage your calendar. So you have your goals document. Things on your goals document have to be on your calendar. Things on your weekly tracking spreadsheet, time has to be allocated on the calendar to get those done. So from the goals document, you go to your calendar. From the weekly activity tracking, you go to your calendar. So you know that everything you need to do is on your calendar. Then all you have to do is actually do what your calendar says to do, which is the hardest part. You have to actually execute it. So that's what you need to do. So your calendar basically is your, you know, your boss in a sense. You know, you do what your calendar says. And when you do what your calendar says, you know that you're in the highest probability position to achieve your goals, or at least be on track. And that's super important. Tip number 7 is live by appointment only. When someone calls in, have your assistant take a complete and in-depth message and schedule a time for when you'll return the call. Now, I have never heard of anyone who says that they really enjoy phone tag. Yay, phone tag, want to do more, can't wait. So living by appointment only is really super time efficient, and it's the best way to get more time back to really do more of your revenue generation types of activities. So as much as possible, really work at living your life to either have face-to-face or phone appointments only. And you'll really, just this one tip alone, if you just did this one thing, you'd be amazed at how much more time efficient you would be just applying this one concept. So again, have an appointment to check your emails, not first thing in the morning, maybe like at 11 o'clock and maybe then again at 4 o'clock. You know, when people call, have it go to your voicemail or a service if you don't have an assistant or your assistant's out on break, you know, and call back during a certain time or have them call back to schedule phone appointments. Busy people really prefer, successful people prefer to work by phone appointment or face-to-face appointment as much as possible. They really hate interruptions and distractions, and that's what, you know, a lot of times people, when they, you know, email you or call you, that's what it is. It's an interruption or distraction from what you were supposed to have been doing that was on your calendar. So stop that and live by appointment only as much as possible. Now, we could talk about time management for days and different systems and processes to help you be even more effective. So what I'm doing here is there's a free CD called Focus on Your High Payoff Activities and Achieve Your Goals Using Effective Time Management. If you go to the URL here, you get that CD. It's about 55 or 60 minutes long. It's an audio that you can download easily and listen to at any time, along with a special report, and then you can learn more about those concepts because Rehan only gave me an hour to get through everything today.
Sorry, Ann.
Well, you know, time management, Rehan, we could talk for hours on that topic.
But that wouldn't be managing on time properly.
Exactly. All right. Tip number 8, ready, set, go. So for intense task completion, consider this. I've had people try this out just to kind of help them get used to really working with their time more efficiently. So using a timer, set it for whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. Using a timer allows you to create basically a game or healthy competition against the clock, so to speak. So it allows you to focus your energy on one particular task. So let's say I'm going to be making phone calls to prospects. So I want to do that for an hour or 30 minutes. So I get out my script, I get out my list, I'm in my right frame of mind, turn on the timer, ding, I'm off. And I do all my calls and I power through everything. And at the end of 30 minutes you hear ding and you think, wow, I really got through this amount of work in 30 minutes. That was amazing. So I think you'd be surprised at how much you actually can accomplish if you create some kind of competition for yourself, at least initially, because sometimes it's not easy to get used to really following our calendar, adhering to, you know, time blocks. It's not easy just to start doing that. So use a timer. A lot of times there's apps now that have timers on them or stopwatches. You can use those or have it ding, you know, that way as well. I just think of the old, you know, kitchen timer. But there's certain other, obviously more technological ways you can do that as well. Tip number 9, do what you do best and delegate the rest. So regardless of how hard you work, again, we only have 24 hours in a day. So there is a limit to what you can actually achieve and still have what I call a life. So keeping an eye on the most trivial matters related to the business is not exactly the best way to utilize limited and your valuable time. So you obviously know you need to be focusing on the tasks that you can complete with the greatest efficiency, effectiveness to get the results you actually want. Everything else should be delegated to a team member, an assistant, a virtual assistant, anybody else that could produce a result and get a good result. So my question that I always like to ask my clients is, could someone else do what I'm doing if I just assigned it to them and either told them how to do it, gave them a script, showed them a process, whatever it was I needed to do? Could someone else do this? So many times when I'm talking on the phone to my clients, they'll say, well, I need to do this or I need to do that. I said, well, who needs to do that? Oh, yeah, you know, I really don't have to do that. But so many times we're just used to thinking, oh, I could just whip this out or I could just do this quickly. Well, if it takes a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it all adds up. And if someone else can do this, it's not a good use of your time. So you don't want to just say, well, it takes only 5 minutes. And that's why I like the question earlier about priority. And when you put things in priority order and you're doing the most important and the highest payoff things, it allows you to really do the things that produce the most result. Where a lot of times, many of us, and I even am guilty of this, I have to constantly slap myself to not do these things too, is, oh, it's so easy, it'll just take me 5 minutes to do this, or just, a few minutes to do that. But it does really all add up. So, and remember, when you're delegating, your team doesn't all have to be in the same office with you, and I think many of us know that by now, but I just want to make sure you're clear. So, for example, I have 3 virtual assistants. They all live in different places in the United States. Actually, one is in Canada. And they do different things based on their expertise. So you can certainly find other people really to help you. And things are more commoditized nowadays than they used to be on things. So you can go to places like elance.com and guru.com, and I'm sure lots of other places that have people there who can help you get some things done that you need to get done. And keep in mind, you might only need 5 hours a week of somebody's help for certain things. That's why you can leverage other people to help you get things done and have it be very cost effective, because the more freed up time you have from doing these things that really someone else can do, obviously the more time you have to do your revenue generation types of activities and have you create a business that's really super successful in the time frame that you want. Tip number 10, leverage your peak energy. Now, each person has their own unique time of day when they're at peak energy. So whether you're an early bird, which I typically am, or a night owl, which my husband tends to be, tackle the tasks that require the most energy and focus to complete during your unique peak energy. You'll obviously get more done in less time, I believe, with optimal results. So the question I like to ask here is, when is the best time to get the best result for whatever the activity is that you're doing each day? So again, if you think in terms of revenue generation activities, because these are the things that typically many of us don't do as much as we should and we need to do in order to achieve our goals. We do all the other stuff that's easy and maybe doesn't cause us too much stress, or we're procrastinating on the actual revenue generation parts of it. Don't ask me why, I don't know, but that tends to happen. So when is the best time to get the best result for that activity? I was working with a client of mine, and she was making calls. We had her scheduled to make calls, for example, revenue generation types of calls every day for a couple of hours. We found that by tracking her results, she was actually getting better results on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Didn't matter why she was getting the better result on Monday, Tuesday. She just was. So what we did was we readjusted her calendar so that she was doing some more not high payoff tasks, moving them to Thursday and Friday so she could increase her call time on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and get super high results. So again, tracking really helps you determine and understand what's working or not working, and helps you be able to more quickly adjust your time frames around to get better results. And also that has to do with your peak energy. Okay. Yay, success tip number 11. Eat healthy for real energy. So as an entrepreneur, you're always on the go. This likely means that you don't have a chance to sit down and enjoy perhaps a proper meal as often as you might like. So while refueling on empty calories may seem necessary and harmless, feasting on the wrong foods can actually cause your already low energy to plummet. So we all kind of know this. Fat and sugar-laden foods will drain your energy and in turn decrease actually your productivity. It may surprise you, but being in poor physical fitness does negatively impact your business as well. So if you're trying to stay fit for your life and your business, you may want to steer clear of the morning donut or the afternoon fast food or snacks that really aren't serving you. So do the best you can to aim for 3 balanced meals a day with, and they always say, additional healthy snacks as needed. So you see a picture here of some nuts and cranberries and raisins and things like that. It's always a great rule of thumb to have these little snacks. I have like almonds, for example, and other kind of nuts and snacks in my office drawer so that, if I'm running late for lunch or, I'm like, oh, I'm really busy trying to get something done, I'm pushing the envelope a little bit, I have a snack that I can eat. So it constantly helps with your metabolism, it helps keep your energy up, and it's super healthy for you instead of like the candy bars or chips or other things that sometimes we tend to eat. My whole philosophy is if you're not fit, neither is your business. So we want to eat healthy and we want to make sure that we are fit. Most of my clients, actually, Rehan, do have also health and fitness goals. So they're always working on either losing weight or staying as fit as possible. So you want to try to get some exercise in. And I always think it's so funny. Exercise always seems to be the thing that goes. Oh, I can't do that. I don't have enough time. I'm busy working. I'm, doing my revenue generation time or whatever the excuse might be. So I can't do my hour workout, so I'm not going to do anything at all. And the reality is if you just did 15 minutes, that's better than nothing. If you did 20 minutes, that's better than nothing. If you did 10 minutes, that's better than nothing. So many people say, well, I had a schedule for an hour, can't do it at all, so I do nothing. Well, you should actually do something, and I find it really interesting. I've got a few clients now on a little program where they have little breaks in between where it's just 5 or 10 minutes, and they'll do like 100 sit-ups, 50 push-ups. They do squats while they're on the phone doing some phone work, or they'll do stretching while they're doing certain types of things at their desk. They'll stretch their legs or stand up and bend over. So they take these little tiny breaks, but they still get a little bit of exercise in. You could go out, run up and down the stairs, run around the block a couple times, and that also just re-energizes us to come in and really power through some things when we start to kind of feel a little bit tired throughout the day, or we're thinking, oh man, one more of these is going to kill me, I don't want to have to do it. So always remaining as fit and healthy as possible helps us be even more time efficient and productive. Not only it helps our longevity in life as well. So if it's within our control, we want to be as fit and healthy as possible.
Yeah, I actually only do about 10 minutes a day, so that's absolutely right. Quick question about fruit and nuts. If the fruit and nuts are in your candy, does that count?
No.
Geez, you just took the fun out of it. And
well, you have sugar already in the raisins or dried cranberries, so
I like my Cadbury.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people do. The other thing that I've really started working on personally for me is really going organic, grass-fed, instead of the traditional food. So I'm really working on paying attention to labels that say organic and grass-fed and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to work at being even healthier as well, and it takes a little bit more time, but I'm feeling like at least I'm doing a better service to my body that I need, because without our health, I mean, we really have nothing. You can't work as effectively. You're not as efficient. You feel like crap, and you just don't work as time efficiently as you can.
Right.
So I just think it's important to, constantly, again, I'm believing in the work-life balance thing, that we work on that as well. So here's a review quickly of the 11 tips that we talked about today. I know tip number 1 was super long, but it kind of all goes together. And a lot of these do relate to one another. So you have your goals document. You break that down into a monthly business metric or tracking spreadsheet, and you break that down into weekly. You use that in conjunction with your calendar. So let your calendar be your boss. Your calendar rules your life. So you time block things where you're doing like activities together. You have an ideal model work week. It helps you live by appointment only. Come up with a challenge around ready, set, go to get you in a good habit to do that. Continue to work on delegating. Make a list of everything that you could delegate. Even if you don't have somebody now, start a list so you can get maybe a virtual assistant for 5 hours a week or whatever you might need to help you offload some of these things that someone else can do. You really need to be only doing things that you can do to get the results that you want to get. Any questions, Rehan, coming through?
There are a few questions. Before, do you have a couple of other slides, Anne?
I just have yours and the last one.
Let's just do those first, and then we will do the questions.
Okay.
So mine is really quick. For those of you who are not yet a member of our LinkedIn group, It's a pretty active group. We have over 12,000 members, almost 13,000 members there. So I invite you to join us on our LinkedIn group at Small Business Accelerator. We do webinars twice a month now, so we have a couple of great webinars coming up. Next week's webinar is about funding your company without necessarily getting an outside investor. And after that, we are going to talk about public relations and PR for your business. So join us for those at smallbusinesscenter.com. Notice that there is no E in the end of center. It's CENTR.com, and you can register for them as well. You can also join us on our Facebook and our Twitter profiles. And then we'll back to Ann.
Okay, super. Yeah, I think it's really great that you're doing a lot of these educational webinars to really help people with their business. So these are things that I think are, good uses of your time to help you learn things that can help you be better at revenue generation and really being able to achieve your goals. So I commend you on that, Rehan.
Thank you.
If you'd like what we talked about today, you can make a decision right now to go back and review, which is what I always recommend, to review what we talked about. So you know how it is when you watch a movie or TV show a second or third time and you see and hear things that you didn't see the first time? Well, I believe repetition is typically a good thing. So I strongly recommend that you go back and listen and watch this webinar again. And certainly you can take advantage of the free gifts that I had. We talked about the audio where it says claim your three free gifts. You can go to that URL and get those free gifts. You can join my inner circle. It's right off my website at accountabilitycoach.com, and you have access to that Wheel of Life along with a lot of other complimentary resources and assessments and tools, articles, and a bunch of other things that are there available to you. Again, it's all complimentary, no charge to you, and I view them as added value resources to help you in your business. And of course, I have a lot of high content webinars, other webinars that I've done that you can get on my website as well under the free articles, free webinars tab on my website at accountabilitycoach.com. So Rehan, I really appreciate you having me here. Do we have any other questions that we want to go over?
We do. Before just a clarification, and so you essentially have two URLs, right? So one is accountabilitycoach.com/free articles, and the other one is accountabilitycoach.com/free webinars, right?
Yeah, it's basically if you hover over the free article tab, you'll see it says free webinars, so you can just hover over that and it'll be right underneath that.
So it's not just one long URL, accountabilitycoach/free articles/free webinars.
No, they can just go to accountabilitycoach.com and hover over that, and they'll see that. The same thing with your free gifts. If you just go to my main website, accountabilitycoach.com, you'll see on the right-hand side you can join the silver membership right there, or you can claim your free gifts right there. Easy to do.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Ann, for that. Yes, we do have a couple of questions.
Great.
The first one is from Alicia, and I think she has left, but her question was somewhat the question I asked earlier. She's saying, thanks for the information. This is way too much detailed work for me in my life. So, again, it's coming back to being a bit overwhelmed. And I think everybody, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I would like to take your view on that as well, I think you have to design this the way it works for you. It may not be as detailed. It may even be more detailed for you. Is that correct?
It is whatever it is for each person. It's just based on what do you want to achieve in your life. So what do you want your business to look like? What do you want your life to look like? Mm-hmm. And you do have to create a business plan, a game plan from which to execute. Otherwise, you have no path. I mean, you don't get on a plane and tell the pilot, just get me, to someplace, however you get there.
Yeah.
So they have a route. They have a specific route that gets you there, the best way. When you get in the car, you don't want to take 10 hours to take what could take you 30 minutes.
Right. And I think the important bit is, you don't have to make it too detailed if you're getting overwhelmed. And if you look at the slide that Ann has up right now with Nolan Bunshell's quote on that, I think the simplification, I have heard another quote from some actor, I can't remember his name right now, who said simply, get started, keep moving.
Yep. And that's the best thing to do. You have to start somewhere.
Right.
If you don't start anywhere, you're not going to get to where you want to be within the time frame that you want.
Right.
And if you're happy with the way your life is and the way it's going, great. Don't change anything.
Right.
But insanity, remember that quote about insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that was Einstein who said that. So another question from Jack. He's getting Jack. I'm seeing your question, so just bear with me for a second. He's saying, and I think you already answered this, Anne, but he's asking, what do you consider linking your model worksheet work week with the Outlook reminders? So I think you answered it by saying it has to be your schedule, anyways.
Yeah, it's on your schedule, so it is in your calendar. So you use it with Outlook and have your little reminders and all that sort of stuff. Yep.
Okay. And Jack is also complimenting you in one word. She's brilliant.
Oh, thank you, Jack. I appreciate that.
Okay. Another question from, or comment rather, well, maybe it's a question from Sandy. She's saying, I work with volunteers online and I have to encourage them to pray online. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. What do you do when that activity rate flattens?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I didn't talk about this, but what I do with my clients now, and I used to never do this, I only used it as a last resort. I basically have a negative motivator, which it's negative, therefore I didn't like to use it. But what I recently learned, probably within the last year, is that people are 5 times more like, we can always make statistics look however we want to, I think, but the statistic was people are 5 times more likely to do what they need to do by having a negative motivator instead of the emotional payoff, the positive emotional payoff as the outcome. So there's online programs like Stick. I think it's stikk.com. It's a free program where you can go and put in some goals and then have people be like your support team behind you. And then if you don't, or when you don't hit your goals, you actually pay I think what they're calling is an anti-charity, somebody who you don't want to give a penny to, a dime to, a nickel to, because you haven't achieved your goals. So, and they have basically your credit cards on file, and if you haven't done it, boom, it goes there. Now, ouch. That's kind of, yeah, it's really ouch. So you have to be real committed to your goals. And the other thing is, I mean, you want to go back to the why. What's the reason why? So what's the ultimate emotional payoff? What's the financial payoff? What are you doing this for? So if you want to pray and it's not coming, you're not doing it as often for whatever the reason is, doesn't really matter. It's like, why did you want to start this in the beginning? What motivated you to get involved in the beginning? And really keep that in the forefront of your mind. What do you want your end life to look like? At the end of the day, what do I want to have accomplished with my life? What do I want people to say about my life? How do I want to feel about my life? Does that help?
Absolutely, and I think it probably helps Sandy as well and others, and it certainly helps me. And interesting about that stick thing that you're mentioning.
Yeah, I actually have my clients sign a contract, and I don't use Stick because Stick was too limited to charities that they weren't as negative about as some other ones. Right. So I have them sign an actual contract with their credit card number, and I've been applying that, and it's made a big difference in the end results that they've been getting.
Right. Okay. So Sandy is saying, yes, thanks, that helps. And she's saying that they don't pay volunteers, so it's all on a volunteer basis. I suppose she can turn it around, and if they don't do what they're supposed to volunteer to do, maybe they can pay Sandy instead of paying Stick.
Yeah, I mean, or just come up with an accountability, like they track something and you keep track of it online. Like I do a lot of programs where we have go-to meetings, similar to what we're doing today, where you can see the other person's screen, and there's free services to allow you to do these types of things, so you can leverage those, like free screen sharing and Makogo and a lot of other ones that are online as well. And you can utilize those to kind of create a nice, healthy competition. So even though they're volunteers, why did they get involved? And track some things that are important to them and see how they're doing against one another. That might work as well.
Yeah, I like that idea of creating a healthy competition. Perhaps do a monthly mastermind group, and you can do it on GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, what have you, with 10, 15, 20 people around the virtual board or table and compete against each other, or even create a leaderboard, right, and see who's doing what, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And that gets people motivated as well. Just again, that coming back to your healthy competition.
Yep.
Lou Ann saying thank you very much. So her comment is, thank you so much for this webinar and taking the time to help me. I am an artist and quite scrambled and unorganized. Most artists are, Lou Ann. And this will definitely help me not to be so overwhelmed all the time.
Great, super.
Awesome. Great. So I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. I think we'll just hang on for a couple of more seconds to see if anything else is coming in. If not, Anne, thank you so much for this webinar. I know it's been very useful to me personally, and I think we probably may want to bring you back for that procrastination webinar you were talking about.
Procrastination. I've got a lot of other, certainly webinars on communication and things like that that are useful to people as we, go through our very busy days trying to achieve our goals.
Awesome. I think we definitely would probably want to bring you back. Well, so you already got a thumbs up from Luann for a yes on procrastination webinar. So okay, I think we will definitely arrange. A couple of more coming in back on bringing you back. So okay. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I think we'll close this. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Please feel free to register for our upcoming webinars. Contact Anne if you think she can help you with it. Any last words from you, Anne?
No, I just appreciate the time and the ability to share with people, and hopefully they got value and just a couple ideas that they can apply into their life to be even more successful. That's my goal.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Have a great Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's to everybody. And I will see you next time. Thank you again, Anne.
Sure, my pleasure.
Bye-bye.